Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
For centuries, ancient cultures knew the secrets to longevity, vitality, and healing. Now, modern science is catching up. Ageless Blueprint is a podcast that will reveal the modern secrets of better health and a better life. Join Dr. Eldred Taylor here today and every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. As together we discover the secrets to better health through science and spirituality. A better life with Ageless Blueprint starts now. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Hello. It's Wednesday morning, and that means it's time for the Ageless Blueprint. And I'm excited about this episode because I'm bringing back a returning guest, Miss Jackie Roberts. And I'm going to give you a brief introduction. And I'm going to tell you why I wanted her to come back. So Miss Roberts, and now she's a menopause strategist who protects the executive performance of high achieving women through menopause. Now, she has ASCP certification, which means that she is a laboratory expert. And that's what we want to talk about is testing. And she also brings 30 years of being in the pharmaceutical industry. And now she is helping women through this midlife change that seems to hit a lot of women, especially when they are high performing women. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So if you are a woman between age 40 and 60, 65, and you feel like you're not quite where you used to be, but you still want to be as productive as possible, then this is the episode that you want to see. And so now we're going to bring in Miss Jackie Roberts.
Good morning. How are you, Dr. Taylor?
All right. Good morning. And we talked a little bit before, but I'm excited about this because I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago you were on and we talked, and then we talked afterwards, and you were interested in what I was introducing. So I kind of want to know, what has happened between the last one and the last episode and this one, and kind of how your perspective might have changed. And I really want to hear your expertise because you have a lab background, and I think the lab testing is one of the important parts in this thing, in this whole evolution that I'm trying to, get women to go through. So that's really what we want to talk about. And then anyone who's listening, for the last 20 minutes, we're just going to have question and answer because I know there's a lot of questions out there, and I want to make sure that we answer those questions. So I'm going to stop talking, and Ms. Roberts, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I can tell you, I've been so excited to talk to Dr. Taylor in the past few weeks because perspective is everything when it comes to thinking forward when we should provide women what they're looking for. I just saw a blurb yesterday on the news where someone who was very affluent said, well, I couldn't get the help needed to figure out what was going on with my midlife crisis. So that means it happens to all women. And so there's so many women seeking a root cause as to why they feel the way they do between 40 and 65. And it could be outside of that because perimenopause can last up to 10 to 12 years. And I understand that getting to the root cause comes with making sure not only that we're looking at the patient's symptoms or a woman's symptoms, but also understanding which laboratory panel to order and what type of panel to order. A lot of women go to their yearly visit and they hear, my labs are normal. And then what happens, they leave after that 15 minutes of talking to their physician to then say, well, how come I feel like crap? And I have these normal labs. Well, it all has to do with having the correct labs during this time frame and looking for the right parameters. So if you've got the brain fog, if you've got the hot flashes, those are the things you hear of a lot, but there are 40, 55 sometimes symptoms that women are dealing with that could be related to perimenopause and menopause. So I say what I've done in the past few weeks is just restructure the way I make sure that I'm helping women, where I want to get to the root cause first by doing some saliva testing on them, which is possible, of course, with my certification, and then sitting with them to have a strategy on what to do next. Because what's most important is to listen to the woman, to understand what the symptomatology is, and the laboratory piece that would be the correct labs, meaning the hormones through saliva testing, can then give us the clues as to how do we treat that patient next, or how do we refer that patient to their healthcare provider so they have what's truly needed to get the help needed to understand that their body can get better. A lot of our physicians don't even know what to look for when it comes to menopause for women. I'm here to make sure that that changes so that women can advocate for themselves to say, this is what you should be looking for, look for it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. In your certification for laboratory science, did they ever say anything about testing fat soluble hormones in saliva?
No, no, I can tell you they didn't, not in the time period when I was going through. And it
Yeah.
was all about doing blood testing, because you have to realize when we're looking at normal everyday labs, we're looking for the absence of disease, not necessarily if that patient cognitively or physiologically is performing the way they feel they should. So a normal lab could be taken when it comes in context from people in any age group. All right. And so then they're putting that 40 to 65-year-old woman in that age group, and it may not match. So saliva testing was not something that we looked at quite frequently at the time that I was going through. Of course, I continue to educate myself, and I understand
Mhm.
not only do we have saliva testing, we have urine testing where we can look at hormones as well now.
Yeah. And again, it's all about, I keep saying, hey, look, there's nothing wrong with blood testing.
Mhm.
It will answer the question. It will tell you the total amount of hormone that you have. No doubt about it.
Yes.
However, most of that 98 to 99% of that hormone is bound.
Mhm.
And because it's bound, your tissue can't use it because as long as you're in your car on the highway, which you're circulating around, you can't do much. Okay. So you have to get out of the car and go to the place where you work. Well, hormones work in the tissue. That's where they work. That's where they're stored. So if you want to know what's working and what the balance is, you got to go to where they work. All right. Now,
Yes.
once it's over with, and you want to see are your hormones getting metabolized in a safe way, because you can have metabolism that's detrimental, and you can have metabolism that is beneficial. And if you want to know that, you go to the urine. And so I have a problem when I talk about saliva tests. They say it doesn't match blood, it doesn't match urine. No, because they're different departments, they're different compartments.
Yes.
So that's how you have to look at it. But you know, Miss Roberts, I've been trying to do this for 20 years, for 25 years. And what I've decided is that the only way I'm gonna get this across is to have people like you spreading that message. Because if I go out and talk about it, I'm going to get attacked by all of the forces. But woman to woman, they can't attack you guys. Okay. So
Right.
so just like I presented the information to you, I want you to present the information. I want other people to present the information because once you see it, it's very convincing. Am I right or am I wrong?
Yes, you're absolutely right. And when I started Faithfully Strong Wellness, that was exactly what I was looking to make sure I did, that I provided an avenue for women so that they would have someone they could speak to figure it out. So I remember someone
Mhm.
asked me one day, they said, well, what are you going to call yourself? You're a coach or you this? It's truly figuring out the strategy for where do I go next? And that comes with a
Mhm.
lot of having the time to speak to a woman. Healthcare
Yeah.
providers don't always have that amount of time, and that's what's
Yeah.
missing. I'm so glad that you've gone into an area of functional medicine, Dr. Taylor, where you can spend the time to seek to understand and actually put the clues together for women. But
Mhm.
for most of our healthcare providers, they have truly 15 to 20 minutes at the max to talk to a patient.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
enough in the course of a year's time to figure out a puzzle that's been going on for years.
Yeah.
So,
And you know, to change beliefs and paradigm shifts and all this. For years, we've looked in the blood for everything. Okay, we're
Right,
like, oh, my, I'm going to get my annual blood labs. I'm going to get and it's just we are so fixated that everything can be answered in the blood. But
right.
in functional medicine, we do GI testing, we
Hmm.
do food tests, we do food sensitivity, we look for moles and parasites and all those kind of things, and those are things that we were never taught to look for. We were
Right,
taught to look for the end result, the
right.
disease, not is it food causing it? Is it your gut causing it? So, that's the problem. And I think that's the problem you have encountered. And I think that's why so many people are frustrated. So, what are
Yes.
your thoughts about that?
Yes, typically, a woman's experience is that she sees several different specialists before someone starts putting together the puzzle. And we have
Mhm,
some amazing specialists out there. I think my first specialist was a cardiovascular doctor, because I was having heart racing. And so I
mhm,
went to the doctor, and he did a echocardiogram on me. He said, I think your heart is fine, but something might be going on with your thyroid, after he got back my blood test. So then that
mhm,
sent me to my second doctor, who was, of course, an endocrinologist, who said, yeah, there's something going on with your thyroid. But there was a root cause to that happening. I was
mhm.
going into perimenopause. I didn't know that. So by the time I actually figured out what was going on, I think I had seen probably six specialists by then, if you can include six or seven, if you include my normal everyday healthcare providers, like someone you typically see your internal medicine, you see your OBGYN, I'd seen quite a few. And when you think of functional medicine, it's truly about being able to function in a way that you
Yeah,
should every single day, versus just constantly looking for the absence of disease. So my experience did lead me to a functional medicine physician assistant, and I've been with her a number of years, and she has figured out my puzzle for me. But I can tell you, is when I first was looking for someone and I found out about her, the first thing someone said, "Oh, you don't want to go to that quack." Why? Because she
yeah,
was thinking outside of the box. She practiced
yeah,
medicine outside of the everyday box of what our healthcare providers learn from, but she
right.
was getting results. And because of that, I said, well, okay, let me trust her for a little bit to see if she can get me some results. I've been getting those same results now for 10, 12 years from her. So
Yeah.
that experience is something that typically a woman is faced with each time she goes for another symptom that comes up. Let's say her shoulder all of a sudden locks up. Where's it going to send her?
Yeah.
Orthopedic surgeon, okay, after being referred. So you end
Yeah.
up with all these healthcare providers, but no one's looking at the root cause, because no one's testing for the root cause. They're not thinking that that could be a causative relationship of your shoulder hurting or freezing up on you, or the ringing in your ear, let alone the hot flashes and not being able to sleep at night.
Yeah. So, from what you've learned or what I've maybe may have exposed you to, what would you say the root cause of most problems are? Of most physical problems that people are going through at that stage. What would you say what do you think the root cause is?
For a woman who's going through that time period, you think of menopause. Okay, menopause is when your menses stops, but that's not just what's going on. Your hormones are changing. So the root cause is that your hormones are shifting. Plus, we have women in higher stress jobs than they've ever been in before. So if you were to look at my website, Faithfully Strong Wellness, you would see that I'm making sure that executive women understand that I understand what they're going through. So this large amount of stress is compounded by the fact that your cortisol is changing as well, along with your estrogen and your progesterone. And when those
Yeah.
things are going up and down, and you've got this compounding relationship of stress from being, gosh, I'm a high performer at work. Oh, forget about the fact I have two young men that I'm raising in my house. Oh, I happen to be African American too. Oh, yeah, I've got a
Hmm.
husband. I like to make sure that I'm with him. I'm working on my marriage. So that stress level of life
Hmm.
continues to go up while your hormones are changing, which creates more stress on your body physiologically.
All right, you're starting to talk like me, Miss Roberts.
Well,
That's
it's
why I
so
asked
true.
you. Yeah, it was a little pop quiz. I wanted
Oh,
to see if you were going to say that stress is probably the cause because, I'll tell you two or three things that you said. One, your shoulder hurting. Well,
yes.
cortisol is a natural anti-inflammatory. If you don't have it, you're gonna get inflammation. And let me talk about how many women have you seen that perimenopausally all of a sudden they need thyroid medication?
Quite a few, and they don't even understand why that's happening. Like myself, I didn't know why was it that this person who worked out all the time, ate correctly, still had thyroid issues, and I
Mhm.
never put that together either. So women typically may come with that being one of the first symptoms that's happening is that they may have a heart race from the thyroid changing because remember our adrenals and our glands, they they are all affected by this hormone change at the same time. So you can't have one go up and down and another one not be affected. That's why there's a couple of panels that typically women should go through first that will include thyroid testing as well to see what's going on with thyroid stimulating hormone. And I can look at women and see just by their symptomatology that there's something going on with their thyroid. I have a close member of my family. And I said, there's something going on with your thyroid just by looking at the symptomatology there. But it's so slight that sometimes women don't pick up on that piece. And so they don't even know to bring that up with their healthcare provider because they may think, oh, this isn't nothing, it'll go away. But what it does, it compounds and it gets worse over time.
So let me propose a idea here. Okay. So
Okay,
let me
great.
tell you what estrogen does. Estrogen increases something called thyroid binding globulin. So it
Hmm.
binds thyroid. All right. So now in perimenopause, remember, estrogen does not necessarily go down. Progesterone goes down because you stop ovulating. So now you have a lot of estrogen that is increasing thyroid binding globulin. And I don't want to get into these too big terms, but anyway, it slows down your thyroid.
Yes,
Okay, so estrogen slows down your thyroid. So it's not really a primary thyroid problem. It's really an estrogen progesterone imbalance problem.
yes,
And then you have cortisol, and cortisol blocks the conversion of T4 to T3. And T3 is the active hormone. So stress and estrogen will slow down your thyroid. So again, if we fix the cortisol, we fix the estrogen progesterone balance, now all of a sudden you don't need thyroid medication anymore. So that's when we really try and get all the way down to the root. Then you can see how those 50 symptoms can blossom from
mhm,
two or three or four root causes. Okay. Now, I know we have some questions here, and I just want to show. Well, okay, good. Questions going to be addressed after the break. So put your questions in here, and we'll answer those. And so that's what I'm talking about, Mr. Robinson, is that a lot of times when you really get down to it, that the way the body works is very simple. Okay,
mhm,
it's always trying to maintain balance. And I
correct.
always say the truth is simple and lies are complicated.
Hmm.
So, and so that's what I'm trying to get with menopause. Menopause, because we've been had so much misinformation, it's very confusing. But I'm
Right.
going to tell you the way the body works is very simple and it's very logical. And so if we start to look at the body like what logically makes sense during this time, a
Hmm.
lot of times it'll become clear what's going on. And I always say that by the time you have a symptom, something's been going wrong for a long time.
Correct.
So we need to figure out, before you have 55 symptoms, when you have the first one or two, let's try and see what's going on. So let's
Yes.
see how much time we. Oh, okay, we have more time. So now you also left. So we've been talking about testing. So let's talk about how the pharmaceutical industry looks at perimenopause and menopause, and how you being a hormone specialist really didn't help you in your journey. So that's I think that's the real interesting point. You were teaching this based on the pharmaceutical information, and then you went through it and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't work.
Yeah. Yes, I did have a time in my career where I was actually teaching healthcare providers about hormones and
Mhm.
how to utilize hormones in patients because that was one of my products. And I remember at the time thinking about the amount of resources that I would bring in for the healthcare providers to provide to their patients. Well, we
Hmm.
had a study that came out, the WHI study, and when that study came out, it really just wiped out probably half of those prescriptions like right away because
Hmm.
it put a black box warning into a product that was being utilized for patients with a lot of success. But that study told us some things that provided an opportunity to pause, which I think was important. I don't think it should have wiped out a whole couple of decades of utilization of estrogen for patients. That's what I disagree with personally. But I can say during that time frame, what started happening for our healthcare providers who were getting trained, they were getting trained about estrogen as like it was toxic waste, for instance. And
Hmm.
it's not. Now we're having to pay for that as women because when we go into our healthcare providers with that black box warning there, that was not going to be something they were going to recommend. So, knowing what I know about the estrogen that's out there in the marketplace now versus the one that was in the marketplace before, we're in a space where our healthcare providers now have the ability to prescribe medication that works for patients. But it's not only about prescribing estrogens, it's about understanding what else the body needs beside that. Because, like Dr. Taylor said, this is a balance of hormones across the body. It's not just estrogen. We got progesterone, we got cortisol, we got thyroid. We have to look at all of that. So, if you think about a pharmaceutical company developing something new in that space, well, it didn't come out, it didn't happen. And you must know that it takes over 10 years of time to get a molecule to market. So what does that mean? There was nothing coming. So that put us in a spot that was detrimental for patients and for women. And now you have women, be it doesn't matter what background you're from, struggling to be able to find out what to do or being put on something that may not necessarily be what they need. Because what I'll tell you, I'm not a proponent for every woman getting estrogen. I am a proponent for every woman figuring out what's going on with their body because they may not need it, okay? But what they do need is to understand the root cause of what's going on by getting the proper testing. And then you're able to get what you need from your provider because your provider is a partner with you in this. You're collaborating together. And with that collaboration, you come out with a good impact for the patient.
And see, you got down to the real problem right there at the end, is that the problem is the testing.
Yes,
It's the
it
it's the
is.
testing. And the black box warning, all of the WHI study, none of them talked about testing the hormones. They all
Correct.
talked about symptoms leading to an outcome 10 or 15 years later. Okay,
Yes.
so you have a symptom of estrogen or whatever, and the only reason why we stopped the estrogen is if you had a mammogram that was positive or if you had postmenopausal bleeding.
Hmm.
That makes absolutely no sense. We don't wait to check somebody's blood pressure after they have a stroke or after, so and now here's the problem with lifting the black box warning. Now I feel like it's the wild, wild west.
Yes, it
So
is.
anybody
It's
can
like,
go out
let's slap
there
it on
and talk about.
everybody.
Exactly. Everybody's talking about, and nobody talks about testing. Nobody
Testing.
would take cholesterol medicine unless somebody did their lipid panel.
Yes.
Nobody would take blood pressure medicine if no one took their blood pressure. But women
Right.
take hormones and no one gives them an accurate understanding of what's going on. That's why they say my labs are normal and I still feel awful. Okay?
Right.
If you if you check your blood pressure with a thermometer, okay, you're going to
Hmm.
get a bad reading. Okay, you're not going to get the
Absolutely.
information that you want. So that's what I'm telling you. I just, it's so clear to me. It just, I just don't understand why we
Hmm.
why we tolerate this confusion among professionals, among American College of OBGYN. They'll say you cannot use this for individual hormone monitoring. Well, you can't use blood either. You
Right.
can't use
Right.
symptoms either. None of that tells you. But in
Yes.
my 25 years of clinical experience, I have seen saliva testing match what the patient reports. And if I correct it, they report that it works. Just like you said, the pharmaceutical industry, they had and it worked, and then it got wiped out. So anyway, I know I start to go too far when I start talking about this,
No,
but
you're
it's
doing, hey, everyone
yeah,
needs
but
to.
yeah, it's just been a lifelong journey, and now I'm like, okay, just like your doctor got attacked and she's a quack and all of that stuff. But if you talk to another woman and you've had the experience, you've seen what doesn't work and what does work,
Right.
nobody can really attack you. And let me tell you, woman to woman communication, I believe, is faster than the internet. Okay, I
Yes.
mean, women talk to other women, especially about these issues. I see it on Facebook, I see it
Hmm.
everywhere. Everybody's talking about it, everybody's confused. There need to be some voices of reason out there. And that's why I'm trying to recruit people like you who have an audience, who women come to. And just like I gave you a new tool to help you help women, I'm looking for more people like you who will say,
Yes.
hey, look, I've got this audience. I feel like there's just a few things that if I could have that, I could really help these women. And I'm hoping this is one of the tools that therapists or even just regular people, because
Hmm.
it really is simple. And all you have to do is be exposed to it, and it
Hmm.
can, it can change your perspective on things. So
Yeah.
I see we have some questions stacking up. You can take a look at them. Let's do about 2 or 3 more minutes, and then I promise we're going to have a break. Then we're going to come back and answer these questions. And if you've got more questions, please, put them in the chat, and we will get to those. So maybe the last thing I want to talk about is that you are trying to go through this experience that my patients go through. So why don't you tell me, what happened? You got your saliva test. Kind of tell kind of tell me, uh, you know, kind of the roadblocks that you come through and what you're going to try and what we're going to try and help you with. And what little symptom did you talk about that, like, hey, maybe to fine tune it, I might need this testing? Because think you said something about your sleep was still a little bit off. So why don't you
Yes.
tell why you even said, hey, well, I want to do the saliva test? Okay.
Yes, because my practitioner, she's an amazing. She does blood work on me every 6 months because yes, my
Hmm.
thyroid is something she has to check on, and I'm also on a testosterone cream. When you're on testosterone cream, you do have to get your blood tested every 6 months. So I will say what I wanted to understand and know is the experience for women who do the saliva testing. So I asked for the kit myself. But then I
Hmm.
understood from that was how can I provide the root cause for a client I'm speaking with if they're still not getting the testing from their healthcare provider in that 15-minute visit. So now I provide something called the Executive Cognitive Edge Audit, where that test kit goes to the patient. They can get their saliva testing done, and then they can have an hour of strategy talking time with me to figure out what's going on with the root cause of their symptoms. So I ordered my test. I got it. I was so excited. And then I realized I needed to make sure I took my hormones at least 12 hours before my saliva testing. So I typically take them
Hmm.
too late at night to do that. So now I have to remember to do that. But my kit came within a couple of days. It's very easy. I've got parts of it here on my desk still. It has an ice pack box in it that I can send it back to the laboratory to have the testing evaluated and looked at. And then a report will come back to me, of course. Now, Dr. Taylor provides this in his practice as well. And so then the patient can get the insights from someone who understands the testing,
Hmm.
understands from listening to them about their symptomatology, and then put the puzzle together to come up with an action plan. That's why I call myself a strategist. Typically in corporate, that's all we think of is okay, root cause analysis, strategy. Then what do we do next? What are the tactics to it? The bottom line is that women feel like crap, okay? And no one's been testing for it. So now we can provide that for patients, and through the executive cognitive edge audit, we can figure out what's going on that's causing the brain fog and all these symptoms that are happening to those high performing women out there, even those running households, of course, to make sure they get to a space where they feel much better than what they were feeling like yesterday.
Yeah. So, hey, Rebel, right before we go, Can you pull up those slides? I'm going to take 1 minute, and I want to because I think these slides, it'll take a minute. Okay, so I think some of the questions you've had this long, expensive path of confusion, multiple doctors, normal. That's what she was talking about. You
Mhm.
get imaging, you get still no answers. You get MRIs, you get all this kind of stuff. Okay, so I told you all of this, like you said, timing matters, patterns matter, and blood-free hormone matters. So that's the problem. Now, this is a saliva test. Now, somebody's talking about, like cognitive function. Well, your brain uses more energy than any organ in your body. And this is a cortisol curve. Cortisol mobilizes glucose, so you have energy during the day. The green is the normal area. This is this patient. This energy, look at this energy compared to this energy. Okay, are this anti-inflammatory compared to this anti-inflammatory? All right,
Mhm.
and this cortisol, we wrote a book called The Stress Connection because it's connected to everything, your hormones, your joints, it's everything. And this is the last slide I want to show you, is that this is not rare. This is what I see all the time. Nobody's in this green area. That's why
Right.
their brain doesn't work. That's why. So this is the critical. This is what I said. Stress is the problem. 75 to 90% of the time is the root cause. So all of you people who are asking, why don't I have enough energy in my brain and all this? This is it. So now we're gonna go to a break. I just wanted to see that. So now I think we have a reference point to answer some of these questions. Okay, so you can see how the testing increases our information that from which we can make a good decision. So let's go to
Yes.
break. Then it's all question and answer after this. Keep putting your questions in there. We're going to get through them as fast as we can. All right, thanks.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the ageless blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk 4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist for better health and vitality. Dr. Taylor will be right back. Taking care of your health shouldn't mean taking a handful of pills every day. At Taylor MD Formulations, they create doctor-developed supplements that combine the best natural ingredients so you get the results you need with fewer pills. Taylor MD Formulations is backed by science, designed for real life with real results. Less pills, better health, doctor approved. Shop now at TaylorMDFormulations.com and discover smarter supplements for smarter health. That's TaylorMDFormulations.com. We are back for more of Ageless Blueprint. Once again, let's join Dr. Taylor for more insights and research on the ancient secret to better health and a better life in modern times. Here's your host, Dr. Eldred Taylor.
Okay, all right, Miss Ross, can you see these questions?
No, I cannot see them. I see. I see
Okay,
one now. I see the first one came up.
okay, so here we go. Yeah, that's it. So how do hormone changes affect focus, memory, confidence, and decision making? That's why I wanted to show that slide. Okay,
Mhm.
so go ahead. I'll let you answer it, and then I'll put in my 2 cents.
Yes. So when hormone changes happen, you have to keep in mind that it affects your insulin sensitivity because what's happening is that your glucose is then changing. When that glucose changes, which sometimes can be up to 30%, you're basically starving the cells in your brain for what you need to lead and what you need to do every single day. And because you don't know that's happening, you feel like, gosh, possibly, I've heard women say, I feel like I've got dementia. That happened to me. You start blanking
Yeah,
in mid-sentence. You can be in a presentation that you have provided probably several times over your lifetime of your career, and all of a sudden you cannot remember the next word, or you may not be able to
yeah,
remember a person's actual name. In my case, my mother did have dementia, so it concerned me that was I starting to get dementia as well. That wasn't the case. My hormones needed to be balanced.
yeah.
Once they were balanced, my words came back. I actually put a video about that on YouTube because I felt like other women needed to understand that they were not alone. Dr. Taylor, what would you add to that?
Oh, well, again, that's why I showed those slides.
Mhm.
You talked about glucose. Cortisol gives you a steady supply of glucose during the day, high at night, low in the morning. When
Right.
you don't have it, one of the first things that the first symptoms is that brain fog. You
Hmm.
see, and I think it's from the lack of that cortisol. So how do you How do you self-medicate yourself? With carbohydrates, caffeine. Why is there a line in front of Starbucks every morning? I think because everybody's cortisol is low in the morning. They've made
Right.
a fortune off of low morning cortisols. And
Hmm.
because if you have a normal supply of cortisol, you shouldn't need 3 cups of coffee to wake you up. You
No,
shouldn't
you
need a
shouldn't.
stimulant to wake you up. Okay, you shouldn't. So fixing that stress, that cortisol, that is
Hmm.
the key to your memory because you're a high performing woman. You have stressed yourself out for 20 or 30 years. Now your hormones change. That's another stress. That's when it
Yes.
hits. So we got to fix the hormones, but we got to fix the stress. Reason why we wrote the book, The Stress Connection, after all your hormones making you sick, because we found out that the stress made our regular treatment ineffective because the cortisol was messing it up. So anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So best diet for menopause. I think that's definitely going to be
Oh,
something I'm sure you help people with.
yes, absolutely. Nutrition is a big focus of when I'm talking to women, and I can tell you the best diet for menopause is number one to eat. Okay, I've had so many women who start
Mm.
restricting their food because they're gaining the weight in the middle. What you
Man,
do when you actually restrict your food is you're stressing your body out more. Okay,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
you say, okay, well, let me exercise more so that I can actually, lose more weight. I was doing 100 miles road biking a week and I gained weight during that time. And every time I train for this charity ride that I do, I have to do that much mileage on the bike so I can make it through the charity ride. But I can tell you that that adds to the stress I already have in my body. When you over
yeah,
exercise a perimenopause or menopause or postmenopause body, in my case, then what happens is you increase the cortisol. So yes, eat, but eat the right types of foods. When it comes to going to the store, the middle aisles, forget about them. Okay, you need protein first, is what you're thinking about for the course of your day. If you're 100 pounds, you should be getting about 100 grams of protein. If you're 150 pounds, 150 grams of protein. I know that sounds like a lot because what happens is that women start out in a deficit. They start with coffee first. Delay that coffee for 90 minutes. Get some sun on your body. Wake your natural natural circadian rhythm up first,
yeah.
then eat some food in the morning. Okay, start with a
Mhm.
good protein source, be it eggs or be it some meat of some type. Women ask, they say, well, should I drink my protein shake? Well, a lot of the protein shakes that you get off the shelf, there's some good ones and some bad ones, and there's a lot of ingredients in there you probably should think through very carefully. So the best resource for a protein is actual food, because your body absolutely will metabolize that in a way that makes you feel full versus a protein shake that will go through you very quickly.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
probably start feeling hungry. You're like, well, I took my protein. It had 50 grams of protein in the shake. You can't do that to your liver over and over and over again. You got to get some
Yeah.
real food. So start with a
Yeah.
protein source, a clean carbohydrate, and then go from there.
Okay, so I see people. I go to the gym and I see these women in all these classes and all this stuff, and I see that their body is not changing. And I sit
Hmm.
there, I'm like, wow, look, I wish I could give them a saliva test. If I could get
Yeah.
their cortisol right, this gym membership would go a lot further. And I'm like, oh, I just want to like, hey, take this test. This will help you out in the gym. But anyway, all right, now this is what I want to talk about: low estrogen effect on heart health. And I know that that has been a big subject. This is what I believe. Estrogen and our progesterone by themselves, I don't think affects the heart as much as estrogen progesterone balance because too much estrogen increases clotting factors. Okay.
Right.
So you don't want to say estrogen is good for the heart, especially if you're not testing it correctly. Okay. So, why do women get blood clots when they're on birth control pills? It's the estrogen that increases clotting factors. So I hear all of this stuff about how estrogen helps the heart, but we always got to look at it's not estrogen, it's the balance of estrogen. You can have estrogen all you want, and if your cortisol curve is screwed up, stress kills people. Stress is what causes the
Yes.
heart problem. So I don't look at does estrogen help the heart. I'm not going to say that progesterone helps the heart. The balance between estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, that protects the heart. It protects the liver. It protects everything is that
Mhm.
balance protects it. So, All right, we got 10 minutes and we got one, two, three, four, five questions. So uh, that's you can talk about heart health if you want, but that's my perspective. I don't like to say one hormone is good and the other hormone is bad. Estrogen
Mhm.
and progesterone by themselves aren't good or bad. Imbalance is bad, balance is good. That's my motto. Okay.
Yeah, and a lot of
So
that may be
mhm,
left over as well from the WHI study.
I
So when
know.
women
Yeah.
heard about that, it's a valid concern because that's what you heard on the
Yeah.
news. Dr. Taylor, I think you did a great job actually answering that because it has to be a
Yeah.
balance, and you have to make sure
Yeah.
you look at each patient individually.
hmm Exactly. So the next was I'm struggling to focus. I'm gaining weight, and the hot flashes are affecting my daily life. What would be your approach if you are my patient? I talk to you. I tell you I think I understand you, and then I hand you a saliva test.
Yes,
Okay?
same thing here.
Because yeah, it's like, hey, I understand. You're not alone. I've been doing this for 25 years. I hear this over and over and over again. Here's the saliva test. We'll talk about it. It'll become clear to you and to me what we need to do. And that makes it a partnership. That makes it
Yes,
a joint. She understands, I understand, everybody's in agreement. And nobody's getting back on Facebook asking, how do you interpret my saliva test? Okay, you got people all on the internet talking about blood testing. So yeah, that's what I would do. All right, Jack, Ms. Roberts, what would you
absolutely the same approach.
do?
I would say that she just provided 50% of what we need by giving us the symptomatology. When you give us the
Exactly.
symptomatology and then we have the testing, we put the two
Mhm.
together. And that's why I say there's that hour-long strategy session. That's what we do. I say, okay,
Right.
we have that testing. Dr. Taylor has the testing results as well. And then we look at that and we say,
Yeah.
okay, this symptomatology tells us that this is what's going on. This is what we're going to change as a result. So then you can get the
Mhm.
outcome that gets those symptoms to a point where you can perform again. That's what you're looking
Yeah.
for, we know.
Yeah. And let me make clear, I don't want to disregard blood testing because blood testing can tell you a lot, okay?
Yes,
It tell you about liver function, kidney function. It can tell you about inflammation with the C-reactive protein. It can tell you about about heart health. We're looking at lipids and lipoprotein little a and homocysteine. Blood testing is great to answer the right questions. Okay, to thyroid, you don't look at thyroid in saliva because it is not a fat soluble hormone. So you look at thyroid in the blood. So it's just a matter, like Ms. Roberts is saying, which test do I do based on the symptomatology that you gave me? Okay, so you do the blood testing, saliva, and you want to do urine testing to look at the metabolites, especially in the cancer patient. Yes, you do that too. But
right.
the missing piece that nobody really talks about is that saliva testing and measuring stress. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. So to try and manage stress without being able to measure it through saliva testing or heart rate variability or something is very hard to manage without that measurement. So anyway, this woman said, is estrogen replacement therapy safe? I think we already answered that question is that we don't like, at least I don't like to look at hormones in isolation. So, uh, so yeah, so tell me how would you answer? If someone asks you, is estrogen replacement therapy safe? What would your answer be now? Okay.
First, the question I would ask back to them is, what do you get that? Where do you get that information from? Because we still need to understand where does that come from in someone's eye or mind's eye as to why they're asking that question. A lot of it is
hmm
because of the study. And then number two, you have to think through estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, all the hormones in our body. You were producing so much more of that in your premenopausal years than what you're producing now. So if you were to
Yeah.
look at that on actual blood testing, gosh, that would mean the estrogen that your body produced over years was just not safe. You have to think through that. But what we're doing is
Yeah.
is not saying, okay, let's put estrogen in every body. What we're doing is saying, let's test to find out where the balance is that's needed. And then when you provide the balance for a patient, then estrogen is safe. Okay, that's what I would say. That's what's most
Exactly.
important.
Yep. That is, Ms. Roberts, you sounded more and more like me every time I talk to you. But you know what? That is what I'm trying to do. And the other, okay, so let's answer this and then, so should I have my cortisol levels tested? And if so, what is the
Yes.
best way? All right, I'll answer and then you can answer. Okay. Now here's what usually when people say that they look at their cortisol, they get a morning 7, 8 a.m. cortisol in the blood, right? So it's a couple of problems wrong with that. One, when you have to get to the a lab drawer at 8 o'clock in the morning, that means the alarm probably woke you up. You're all discombobulated. You're trying, you usually sleep till 9, but you had to go to 8. So your cortisol is up. Okay. So when you actually woke up and during that normal day, your cortisol might have been down, but you had so many stress to get there. So now your blood cortisol, like, oh, well, your morning cortisol is fine. No, I want to know the cortisol when she woke up. We do the saliva testing 30 minutes after you wake up. So then you're like, okay, this is why she wakes up and still feels groggy or whatever. So you want to do saliva testing because then you can, and who wants to get their blood drawn 4 times during the day? You can take a saliva sample 4 times during the day, then you get that curve that I showed you in those slides. So cortisol, I think, is the best way to do it and do it through saliva. So you can give me your answer, Ms. Roberts.
I totally believe that to be the case as well, because when you go to your healthcare provider, you're getting one moment snapshot in time of what your cortisol is. And like Dr. Taylor said, it changes throughout the course of the day. So to get a clear picture, it's better to be able to look at what's going on with those 4 time frames. But not only that, then it provides a clue for us that, oh, you're going to wake up at night because your cortisol is right here at this certain time of day. And
Exactly,
then we
exactly.
can answer that puzzle for you and say, okay, you said, why am I waking up? This is why you're waking up because this is what we see in your hormone panel and also what we see with your cortisol levels
Yeah.
through
Hey, I
saliva.
see the last question is what's the biggest misconception people have about cortisol? Can you pull up the slide that I have right now? And I'm going to say, here's the biggest misconception. When people feel like they're stressed, they say, oh, I know my cortisol is high. No. Most of the time, your cortisol is low. Cortisol is your adaptation hormone. So it helps you to adapt to changes in your environment, externally and internally. So when you don't have enough, you cannot adapt appropriately. Okay. So now you're stressed because you don't have the energy to do what you used to do. So people try and act like cortisol is bad. Oh, it's a steroid. You can't take steroid hormones. You like Ms. Robinson, when you were high performing, you had a lot of cortisol. I guarantee you were up here, okay? And that cortisol made you stressed, but you were productive. So, but when you're down here, cortisol, you're still stressed, but there's not enough cortisol to handle that. There's not enough glucose being mobilized to your brain and everything. So that is the misconception. I'm doing a YouTube video about a book called The Safe Uses of Cortisol that was written by an endocrinologist in like 1950 or 60. And he's talking, that's where I learned this from. Cortisol is not bad. Cortisol is but too much cortisol or too little cortisol is bad. And that's with any hormone. Too much estrogen or too little estrogen is bad. Too much progesterone or too little progesterone. Too much insulin or too little insulin is bad. Everything is like that. So the misconception is that cortisol is not your enemy. Normal cortisol is what helps you to adapt to this environment. But if you don't have enough, you can't adapt to new situations of menopause or too much exercise. It's your adaptation hormone. So anyway, that's my answer to that. Everything that's the misconception about cortisol. Is not high cortisol that's usually the problem. It's
Mhm.
low cortisol that makes you feel like that. Okay.
Yes. And the only
Mhm.
thing I would add to that is that we end up doing as high performing women is that we then self medicate with caffeine, or we end up
Yeah.
trying to over exercise. We start doing over too much to try to
Hmm.
compensate for what's going on with our cortisol levels, and it only
Yeah.
makes us function just above what we would want to be during the course of the day.
Yeah.
But then it drops us back down with the
Right.
crash. Be it
Yeah.
you eating the wrong foods or having too much caffeine during the course of the day. And by
Yeah.
3 o'clock, you're like, okay, why am I jittery after I had my caffeine? I thought I would be okay. Well, you
Hmm.
took a stressed out body and added caffeine on top of it. It's like taking jet fuel and putting it into a race car. Those two don't
Yeah.
go together at all.
Yeah. And the other thing that I want to show about that discrepancy in energy is that people fill it up with caffeine and carbohydrates. So
Yes.
people will come in and they're trying to lose weight and they say, no, I crave sweets. I'm like, that's counterintuitive. You're a smart woman and you're eating carbohydrates and thinking of, and I tell you, you have cravings. You're searching for energy. If we can get your cortisol up, your cravings will go away. Then you're going to be able
Right.
to lose weight. So, hey, we're about to, but I want to end this. I know you have we have the thing scrolling. We're going to put her information in here, but this is what I want to say. If you're somebody who is like Miss Roberts, who would like to carry this information, because let me tell you, you can do it one on one. Okay, contact me because Ms. Roberts, I'm giving you a way to have a library of my information to help you learn how to help patients. And that's what I'm trying to provide for people, that she's not learning this on her own. I have information, I feed her and everything. And so we're entering to this kind of relationship. And I'd like to have more people like her. You don't have to have 30 years of experience in pharmaceuticals, all right? You just have to be a woman who is going through this and wants to find the answer and wants to help somebody else. See one, do one, teach one. That's what medicine is all about. Miss Roberts, we're over time, but just give your parting shots and we'll call it a day, okay?
Yeah, what I will say is if you're seeking that help, which I know you are, go to faithfullystrongwellness.com. You can reach me there and we will get that executive cognitive edge audit done with you. I say with you because you're not alone in this anymore. There's someone here who can help you, someone who's been through it, and someone who will help you figure out the strategy to get to the performance you are always used to doing every single day.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm doing this because, hey, look, I'm at the end of my career. I'm getting to the end of my career, and I'm trying to keep this going. So, uh, please
Yes,
come
thank
because
you.
I can't see all these patients. I can't. But there's people out there who I want to help other people. So join me next week, and we'll continue this journey. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for providing the questions. Thank you, Ms. Roberts. It's
You're
always a
welcome.
pleasure to work with you. All right. See you guys.
All right.
Thanks for joining Dr. Taylor today. If you missed any part of this show, just check out the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Ageless Blueprint is every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on W4HC Radio at W4HC.com. Together, we discover the ancient secrets to better health through science and spirituality made for modern times. Until then, feel free to check out agelessblueprintpodcast.com and taylormdformulations.com for more information.